so today's video is going to be one that I'm really excited to film, and that is a Disney related video. I thought in the lead up to our Disney holiday next month that I would do maybe some more Disney related videos, and this one I saw a couple of people do on YouTube, so I really thought I would give it a go. This is a Disney unpopular opinions like tag video. Now these might not all necessarily be unpopular. These are my opinions. This is not supposed to be a my opinion is the only opinion you should have video. That's not the case. Everyone is allowed their say, and this video is really to get you all sort of talking and like having that community aspect and seeing what other people think really. And some of these might not be unpopular, they might be very popular opinions even if they're a negative one. So yeah, I thought I would jump right in, and I've probably got more, but these are the ones that I've just thought of now, so maybe in the future I'll do an unpopular opinions version 2 video. But let's get into it. So the first one is probably my most controversial on the list, I would say, and that is I do not like Halloween at Disney, more specifically at Magic Kingdom. And I know it is such a huge part of the year, people love it, it's already started now, it started back in August, like people love Halloween at Disney, but I just don't. Like, I think it's very like Halloween anyway is very like an Americanized thing. I can appreciate it. I do think especially for children it's really quite fun, and I think the actual parties they have are great, but I've never been one for Halloween. I'm not overly thrilled on like the decorations. I think it looks cute, but I'd rather they made it more like autumn fall rather than Halloween specific, if you get what I mean. Like the pumpkins I think are very they're very seasonal, and especially, this is gonna sound like very like 2D on a shallow level probably, but if this is the one time that you are going to Disney and like this might be like a one and only time going, and you go and there's Halloween pumpkins everywhere, it's not gonna be great when you get home and you want to print those photos off and have them out on display to see like seasonal pumpkins, you know what I mean? The same sort of a little bit with Christmas, but I love Christmas at Disney. I'd much rather it just have like a full decor rather than Halloween. I don't know, it's probably very controversial, but that is my opinion. We've never done the Halloween parties either. The only thing that I do really think is very cute is the characters dressing up in costumes, and even that sometimes, if you like their original costumes, can be sort of a bummer if you meet them in their Halloween costume. I think the Winnie the Pooh and Friends ones though are very, very cute. The way they dress up, adorable, and I will try and like insert some pictures if I can, just to like so you know what I'm talking about with these. Okay, that was the first one. The second opinion I have is that the old test track was so much better than the new test track. If you don't know, the old test track used to be like you're a test dummy. It had so many more like exciting things to it, whereas now it's all about like building the car and putting the car through the test process. And yes, it's slightly similar because obviously you were testing the car, but I felt like there was so much more to it. Not only did they have the whole like introduction video with the guy and the woman, which I used to love, to like set you up in it, and then like throughout there was like all the different road surfaces, you test the brakes, you went through the cold and the hot sections, and I thought the overall theming was super cool as well. Even in the queue you had all the different things that they would test cars for. And I thought that was really quite an informational thing as well for kids. So I really love the old test track. I still like the new test track, don't get me wrong, but I think the old test track had a lot of, it made for a cooler ride experience rather than just driving. It's a lot smoother, the new ride, I think. Let's see, the next one I think may not be unpopular, but it's at least a very underrated ride, and that is Carousel Progress. It is my favourite attraction, purely half of it for the fact that you can sit down in air conditioning for like 15-20 minutes and just relax. But I love the nostalgic feel of it. I love that, I love any attraction basically at Disney that was created like back in the 50s and thinking of the future. So like the House of the Future, all that sort of thing, I thought was really, really cool. And obviously Carousel Progress was one of Walt Disney's main attractions that he had a part of, so it's got that nostalgic element to it. I think it's a shame they've got rid of it at Disneyland, and we're sort of like hanging on to it by a bare thread, I think, at Walt Disney World. I know they rebranded the outside of it a couple of years ago, but they've not really done much to the inside, and I think like Spaceship Earth, the inside like scenes need a little bit of updating, which I believe they are doing with Spaceship Earth, so that's another thing. But I think, yes, it does need a bit of updating, and I think that would be amazing if they do. I think it would give it a whole new life to it. But I love the music, I love just like the nostalgic element to it, and again, it's a bit educational. The next thing is another sort of attraction that I think is pretty underrated. Not many people talk about it from what I see like on vlogs, not many people do it, and that is in the Japan Pavilion, and that is the Pick a Pearl experience. If you want to do a good like pearl experience, there are two places you want to do it. Either Japan or at SeaWorld. Now if you've got an aversion to SeaWorld like we do, like we don't visit it, then Japan is your option at Epcot. The one at SeaWorld has actual divers go down, they bring them up, and then you pick from a selection that they brought up. At the Japan Pavilion, they have them all laid out, and you can pick exactly the one you want from anywhere in the tank. So you can really pick whatever you want. As far as like the difference in quality between there and SeaWorld, I don't know. I'm just talking about Disney here. But I love it. I think the whole interaction with the cast members is really great. I do think it's gone up in price, so it is becoming a bit more expensive for what it is. Considering at the end you get a pearl, and it's like, what do I do with that? Like, you can obviously make it into jewelry, but that is an extra cost. But it's something I've done since I was a child, and I love doing it and seeing, you know, what size you get, what colour you get, and sometimes you can get twins, and I just love the whole overall experience of it, and I think it's definitely underrated. The next one is less about the parks, more about films in general. I am not a big Disney film fan, I've found out. Like when I was younger, I obviously watched Disney films as they came out, but I was never one to sit down and be like, can I watch Cinderella? Can I watch The Lion King? Like any of those really. As far as I can remember, I never did. And then in the most recent years, I'm not a fan of the live action films either. We went and saw The Jungle Book. I wasn't that bothered about that. The Lion King we've not seen. What else? Dumbo we've not seen. Lady and the Tramp they've got coming up, which I'm a bit more excited about because it's dogs, but take it or leave it. I don't know, I'm just not overall, like even like the princess live actions I've not been that bothered about. I don't know why. I think maybe that's just because I'm not a big Disney film person in the first place. I don't know, I like very niche Disney films. Weird, only like a select few really. So that is that. Slightly to do with films and the parks, not a fan of Star Wars. I think it is overrated. I have seen some people say that it's mostly aimed now at the parents rather than the kids. Like the kids are not as much interested as is the older generation now, because obviously we've sort of grown up with it. I've never been into Star Wars. I know very stereotypically I think it was much more of a boy thing growing up, and I can't get into that like sci-fi fantasy. I possibly will go to we probably will go to the new Galaxy's Edge when we go to Disney, but I ain't gonna be fangirling over it as much as like everyone else, which is a shame because I'd love to appreciate it for what it is. And same goes for Pandora in a way. I would love to go to the land and go on the rides, but I feel I'm not because I've not really watched the films, I'm not gonna be as invested as someone who that loves the films. You see what I mean? So yeah, I think it's definitely been very, very hyped up, and obviously they've built a whole themed land and they're building a hotel for it, so I'm sure like it has been well worth them doing for people, and I know it's been very popular, but for me, take it or leave it, I'm not that bothered. Another one which is probably a little bit controversial is I am not a fan of Animal Kingdom, and I don't know if this is that controversial. I think it's probably a lot of people's like least favourite park. I know obviously it's got the Everest ride and obviously Pandora now, but I think like it doesn't really have a lot going for it. I think my favourite thing about it is the safari and the animals that are there, but I could not name you 3 other rides that are there except for Everest and Pandora Land. And it's always the park that, given the chance, out of all 4, is the one that we won't go to if we don't have the time for. Like, again, it's a take it or leave it thing. We probably again will go this year because we're like sort of wanting to do everything, and I'd like to go to Pandora because I've heard a lot of good things about the rides, but there's just, it needs something else to it to get me to really love it, and I just don't think it will ever be my favourite park. My favourite park I think is Epcot, and it has been for a very long time, I think. The next thing, again going about parks, I think Hollywood Studios was better when it was MGM. I think it had a lot more emphasis on the movies and the whole creating of movies. Obviously you had like the backlot tour, and then you had the Great Movie Ride, and you had like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, you had Bugs Life. Is Bugs Life still there? I think it might be. Obviously they have to move with the times, like I understand that, and well, like Toy Story Land, Darren is super excited for that, as am I, and obviously Star Wars now, but I do think they are losing some of the like Hollywood glamour that it had, in a sense. It's becoming very like new age Disney, new Pixar, which, like I said, yes, I understand they have to move with what's popular at the moment, but I would like to still see some of that. Like even the streets of New York was really nice to just like, I know it needed more to it and it was just sort of like a set, there wasn't really anything there, but I think it needs to recapture that element of making the magic, making the movies and that sort of thing, and I feel like it's lost that a little bit over the years. The second to last one I've got on here is DisneyQuest. Now DisneyQuest used to be a fantastic indoor theme park that they had at Downtown Disney, now called Disney Springs. That's a whole nother video, and it's now where they have the NBA experience. I think Disney has done themselves a huge disservice in not only taking out DisneyQuest but replacing it with a sole basketball experience. I think basketball is very much popular in America. I don't think it translates as well over here in Europe, especially here in the UK. I think if they'd made it an overall sports theme like the ESPN, so if they had like American football, basketball, baseball, football, I think if they had mixed them all, that would have been a way more popular experience, I think, than it's going to be just being basketball, because it's not going to translate as well across the field, and I think it's going to be quite niche. Back to DisneyQuest, I used to love DisneyQuest, and it was nice to have an indoor theme park you could go to when it was like a rainy day out. It was sort of like an expansion to the rest of their 4 parks, and I think it was slightly underrated. I mean, it was always busy when we went there, so I don't see how, obviously I don't know the behind the scenes, if they were losing money, if it was outdated, all that sort of thing, but I think they could have done so much more with it now, especially with like VR and that. They did have like some VR rides at the time, which were like thinking about it way before the actual times of VR. And I think they could do a lot more to it, and reimagine it rather than what they've done in building their new NBA experience. And the final thing I want to end on, which is probably the most controversial one, is I believe that Disney is not just for kids. It is for everyone, no matter if they've got children or not. Personally, I find it quite saddening that people would think it's only for Disney because only for kids, sorry, because Walt Disney created it for everyone to be kids, for everyone to enjoy and being throwback to a nostalgic time of when they were a kid and just having fun, not having to worry about anything. And that, I believe, was like one of the main reasons he built the parks. I also think it's a bit disrespectful as well when people say that to people that can't have children, because why should they not experience Disneyland just because they physically can't have children? And why should people not experience it if they just simply don't want to have children? I do think it's for everyone. Some of the rides are obviously bigger rides, maybe not suitable for young children, like Everest or Rock and Roller Coaster Tower of Terror. I mean, it's all subject to the child and the height and all that, but like there's definitely rides when I was a kid I didn't want to go on, but my dad really enjoyed them. So I think it's not just for families, I think it can be enjoyed by everyone. So that's what I want to end on. If you've got any comments on what I've talked about, then leave me a comment down below. Leave your unpopular opinions and let's start up a little discussion. A nice discussion though. I don't want to make this like a negative, so to speak, place. So yes, I hope you enjoyed that and I'll see you soon. Bye guys.